Now, are you like me that you sometimes have little bits of resin over like this? Now, I make lots of different things with my leftover resin, as you've seen before. I want to see if I can make some stained glass. But before I do that, I kind of want to make my resin stained glass. So with my little bits of resin that are left over like this, I'm pouring it into this very shallow, flat mold. I'm using translucent colours. So I used a ruby there, and this time I'm using a sapphire. And all I do is I mix that in to give me a really nice clear mix. And I'm not too worried because this is so shallow. If I've mixed a load of bubbles in with this, I can burst those really, really quickly. I could put it in my bubble removing machine. This is already leftover resin, so it's been sitting around for 20 minutes at least. And I don't want to let it sit around for too much longer because it will flash cure up. Then I just pour it onto my mat like this. I don't mind if it overlaps in anywhere or it connects up to somewhere else because that is going to be part of its charm, I hope. I'm not 100% sure this is going to work out, but I think it will. But as we know, by many of my videos, my experiments don't always work out, and I always show them whether they do or not. So what I'm going to do is to get this like smoky look in it as well, all I'm doing is going around with the concentrated colour and putting a few drops of that on top of the resin. Put another one there. And then I'm taking a stick and I'm moving that around inside the actual resin to get that little streaky, smeary effect. So it looks like quite an old type of glass. I'm happy with that. All I'm going to do now is go over it with a long neck lighter, not a torch, because the last thing you want to do is adhere this to the mould. And actually, antique glass used to have a little bit of bubble in it some places as well. So I'm not too worried if there are one or two little bubbles in it. I just don't want the massive ones on the surface. And now I'm going to let that cure up. And then when I get some more leftover resin, I'm going to keep adding to that until it's full of different colours. And then I'm going to have a go at making some stained glass with it. And I'll show you what I've got planned for that. Well, this is all cured up now and ready to use, so it's just about taking it out of this. And unfortunately, this does have a little dip in it, this mould, but there we go, we can get over that, and that's why you've got that little shallow part there. So what I'm going to do is draw a square on here, and I might as well use the sides of this to try and get it as square as possible. This isn't something I've done before, this is just really something I want to try to see if I can use up my leftover resin in a different way. So now I've got my square done, what I can do is I can kind of divide this up however I like into some square pieces, or some very angular pieces, let's say. And if you don't like a piece that you've got, then all you need to do, because you're working on the back of the mould, use a bit of alcohol and that will come off. It's not going to hurt your mould on the inside because you're using it on the outside. And I quite like that pattern that I've got there. And now all I need to decide is what colours I'm going to use where, because that just makes life a little easier for when I start to cut them. So I'm going to go yellow there. I definitely want a blue there. There we go. All I need to do now is decide which bit of that. So for instance, let's do this yellow bit running that way. So actually, I can draw on here like this, slightly inside these lines, because we're going to put some leading or something of the equivalent of leading in there, and we need a little bit of a gap. So that'll do me. Now you may be thinking, well, how's he going to cut that because it's cured now? And I found the best way to cut this is heat it up with a hairdryer, and you can feel it start to get quite pliable. I would use a hairdryer rather than a heat gun, because if you use a heat gun and you haven't got a temperature control on it, you might overheat it and melt it, and you don't want to do that. And then all I'm going to do is I can now go in there with my scissors, because that's soft enough to be able to do that. I can tidy up those edges now. If it cools down too much before you finish cutting, just heat it up again. And let's see if that fits there. It does, but I need to cut a little bit off because I've made it just a little bit too large. So I'm going to cut off a little bit more on each of these edges, because we do want a gap, don't forget. And then I'm going to show you what I'm going to use for filling in the gaps once I've got all my bits cut out. Yeah, but that's fine. I'm happy with that. Now, what I'm going to do is clean that piece up to make sure I've got none of my red ink or whatever colour ink that you use. And all I'll be using is a little bit of 99% alcohol to bring that up nice and clear. Put that there, and I know that piece is then finished. Now, make sure you've got that flat, because where you've heated it up, it may have been slightly out of shape. So make sure you got it flat and stick it to the actual mould there like that while it's cooling down, and then it will stay nice and flat. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to finish off cutting all the other bits out, and then I'll show you how I'm going to do the next stage. That didn't take too long to cut, and actually I think it's come out really, really pretty. Now what I'm going to try filling this with first is the high viscosity UV resin, because I'm hoping that's going to leave a little bit of a mound but also stay where I want it. Now the one big problem with using UV resin is colouring it black, so I'm going to use a black mica powder and see how I get on, and I'll probably cure it for quite a long time. It's a sunny day out today, so I'll probably put it in the sun for about 10-15 minutes, but we'll see. I'm sorry if my fan is a little bit noisy in the background, but it's so hot in here today that I need to have it on. So what I'm going to do is pour my high viscosity resin into here, and now I'm going to add some black mica powder. What I'm not going to do is try and overpower it. I want it to be dark. I still need to be conscious of the fact that the UV has to cure it up. So I think that was plenty, perhaps even a little bit too much, but who knows? We can only see. And now what I'm going to do is use a pipette to suck that up, get a cloth, because I will definitely want to be wiping my tip here. And now I'm going to work on here like this and squeeze that in. And because this is lovely and thick, it should just stay where I want it to be. I'm going to let it overflow onto these edges a little bit. Try and get a nice line of it. Now, I don't mind if it scoops out the edge here at the end, because I can tidy that up when I go to do the edge. And because resin glues resin really, really well, I don't think we'll have any problems with this coming apart or anything like that. So I'm not worried about that. So there we go, that's that all done. I'm going to cover that up so it doesn't cure. I'm just going to quickly pop any bubbles that have come up. So now I'm going to go and pop it out in the sun, or try and cure it with my lamp. Well, that cured up in minutes outside in the sun because it's so warm today. So now what I'm going to do is put my last layer on here to dome this up. What I'm doing now is popping a little layer on the top of that so it looks quite domed. Bit heavy-handed there, but there we go. Might clean that up a bit. Okay, I'm going to try and tidy that up a little bit using a cotton bud. And now I'm going to pop that outside again, and then I can show you how I'm going to do the edges. Well, that's good, nice and hard now, and it's not at all sticky. I will trim these bits off here, just using my scissors, before I go ahead and do the edges. And to finish off the edges, what I'm going to do is hold it upright like this, and then run a steady bead of this high viscosity resin across these edges. If I didn't have a tremor, this would be so much easier. And then cure that up with my UV torch or your UV lamp, and then you've got a nice finished black edge going all the way around. And then before I finish that edge off, what I'm going to do is put a little bit onto the front as well, so it looks like it's overlapping. And then cure that up. And then flip it over and tidy that edge up as well on the other side. Well, that's all finished now. And I think that's come out really well. I added a jump ring there so I could hang it on the wall or hang it in the window or somewhere. And I think it's come out really well, both sides. And it was so easy to use. And what a great way to use up all your scraps. And it does look like stained glass. I defy anyone to tell me it doesn't. I think against the white background, it looks really cool. It was so easy to make, so much easier to make than I thought it was going to be. Let me know in the comments what you think, or if you've ever made some stained glass windows out of resin before. It's a great way of using up extra resin. A big thank you to all my members whose names are coming up now. If you'd like to become a member and benefit from all the benefits that membership brings you, then the link for that is in the description below. Check out the video I've got coming up next on another experiment. I think you'll love it. I love experimenting with resin. Be sure to boot the like button. It really helps my videos to get out there, and share it wherever you can as well. That helps too. And if you've not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Take care. Enjoy your resin. Bye.